In this episode of the Exploring Information Security podcast, how to find vulnerabilities. Welcome to the Exploring Information Security podcast, where you will learn, explore, and grow your security mindset. I am your host, Timothy D. Block, and in this episode, we will be exploring how to find vulnerabilities. Joining me today to discuss this is Samy Kamkar. Samy, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. So I was looking over your stuff. I heard about your exploits probably a year or two ago when you were on the Security Weekly podcast talking about opening garage doors with pretty much a child's toy. But in my research, I found that you've got everything from taking over drones via a thing that you call Skyjack. Probably one of my favorites is the wireless doorbell, the digital ding dong ditch prank, which even after the dude's wife had removed the wireless doorbell, it was still ringing.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
And you've done a lot with like USB drives, key sweeps, even just breaking combo locks, and just figuring out how to do that, and then building a device that actually does it in less than 8 tries. More recently, you've had Poison Tap, which exploits locked machines and grabs pretty much browser history. But we're actually not going to talk about any of those because there's like a theme here, and that you like looking for vulnerabilities. So how did you get started looking at vulnerabilities?
I think I got started early, and it was really like I wanted to be a script kiddie. I think that's what happened. I was 10 years old, and it was like right when I got up the internet, and someone I got an IRC, and someone denial of service me, and I had no idea what happened. It was like the first day on a computer, and my computer crashed, and I freaked out, and I rebooted it. It was Windows 95, and everything came back, and at that point, after I was like, wow, like that was crazy. I can't believe someone was able to do that to my computer. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know anything about me, yet they were able to actually, manipulate my machine over the internet. And from then on, I really was just curious, like, how did they do that? How can I do that? How can I protect against it? How can I, ultimately I found out they were doing WinNuke, and then Microsoft released a patch, and they released like Windows 95 as Service Pack 2, and that fixed it. And I was like, well, this doesn't work anymore. I wonder if there's a way to do it again. I wonder if there are other ways. And that kind of just led me down a rabbit hole.
And you don't actually work in the security field, right?
No, correct.
Correct. This is more like a hobby type, which is amazing because you've found all this different stuff. But like watching your content, you can see a lot of, I guess, I don't really like using the word passion, but you get a lot of enjoyment out of doing this kind of stuff. Yeah.
It's super interesting to me. I mean, I've been in software since I was young, just because, I guess I enjoy software too. So I enjoy building software or writing software. And then more lately getting into the hardware side. But it seems so cool. Like there's so much you can do and so much we haven't done. So it's always been very exciting to me.
Yeah, and you mentioned software, which is what I think a lot of people look at. But a lot of your stuff also like focuses on like almost like a combination of both. Absolutely.
That's a good observation. I'd say if I just find a vulnerability, I actually typically don't do anything about it. I don't release it. Sometimes I'll report it, but usually the things I like to release are a combination of not only breaking something, but also creating something in the process. Because I think creation itself is also really cool. And I think, I guess exploitation is fun. I think creation is productive. And I want to kind of combine the two when possible.
All right. So let's actually take a small step back and kind of define a vulnerability. So to you, what is a vulnerability?
I don't know the official definition, but I guess to me, I'd say a vulnerability is essentially an error or bug, and that doesn't need to be specifically in a computer, but in anything that essentially gives someone additional access or permission or removes access or permission from something that shouldn't. So lots of things have errors or bugs, but if you can manipulate an error in a way that, let's say, escalates privilege, that itself is vulnerability. But if it's just something that maybe causes something to not work well, then I think that's just a bug.
Okay. So why is it important to find vulnerabilities?
I think you'll get different answers from different people. I mean, I've personally just found it interesting, right? For me, it's more like solving a puzzle. But as I grew up a little bit, haven't grown up totally, but I try to grow up, and I guess it started. It's clear to me that being able to discover vulnerabilities and find effective ways of solving problems is basically beneficial to a ton of people. I see. I think people like us who are more technologically savvy, we see all sorts of bad things that are happening on the internet and with technology, and how people are getting hacked and pwned and exploited, and bank credentials stolen and credit cards stolen, and malware on their machines, phones compromised, etc. And we know a lot of ways to stop that. We know a lot of ways to prevent it. And often we even know the vulnerabilities that are causing that. But I find that in many cases, a lot of people don't actually do anything until you can demonstrate what is happening. It's only once you sort of demonstrate a vulnerability do people really take it seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to your I think it also helps with like problem solving skills, because you're trying to solve certain problems. Sometimes they're not good. Like opening garage doors isn't necessarily something that you want a problem to solve, but it can be useful in finding ways to put things together.
Yeah. I mean, with the garage door thing, I would say the things that are interesting there is, for one, you kind of want to know what garages and what manufacturers of garage doors not to use. Secondarily, if you're ever creating a system like that, you'll also understand and learn sort of what are the flaws that cause those issues, those specific issues that allow them to be opened in under 10 seconds, for example.
What skills do you feel are necessary to find vulnerabilities?
It's a tough question. I'd say, I mean, for me, it's definitely just curiosity. So often I'm not looking for vulnerabilities. I mean, I'm kind of curious how things work. So I think it's interesting to know how something operates. And then kind of once you know how it operates, you can do a lot of cool things, right? You can build something that interacts with it, and not necessarily to exploit something, but you can just build something, or you can interface with something, or you can build something that uses the technology that you now understand. So I think a lot of the things that I try to learn are also so I can then build stuff as well. But I would say if you can break down how something works, or do research to learn how something works, I think that's important. I would say another thing that if you're specifically looking for vulnerabilities, then I would say persistence is another thing that's important. If you're going for a shotgun approach, you don't need persistence. You can kind of just move on product to product, site to site, app to app, whatever you're looking at until you find stuff. That is one way. But if you're trying to target something, and that's always interesting to me, I'm trying to find something specifically, then you probably want to have persistence, because then you're going to run into a lot of walls. At least I run into a lot of walls, maybe not other people, but I hit a ton of walls, and I feel like I have to learn a lot every time I work on something new. So that slows me down a lot, and honestly, it can be demotivating. It can really kill my motivation, and sometimes I'll have to kind of switch projects because I'm just so upset that I haven't really discovered anything that I've been trying to do, or I haven't been able to accomplish what I'm trying to. But often I'll return to those projects, and so I'd say persistence is pretty key there.
So speaking of that, how often are you finding vulnerabilities in general?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure, but it just depends.
Well, I noticed, and I asked this because I noticed on your YouTube channel that like you will go like a year in between like releasing something new, and maybe you're finding, like you said, some smaller vulnerabilities that you may be reporting or just kind of ignoring.
Yeah. I guess it just depends. Like I hadn't released anything for literally a year in the last year, until Poison Tap a couple of weeks ago. But that's it. The year before, I probably released, I don't know, at least 6 projects. Okay. At the very least, right? So that was one every 2 months, and those are, and I think, and they were kind of big projects. They definitely took me a long time, each one, and it wasn't just the span of every 2 months. It was kind of like some things I had found for a while, or And I guess a lot of it was also just writing and documenting and making
Hmm.
videos and building and learning to 3D print, to 3D model, and a couple of those required some fabrication. So definitely a lot of learning along the way.
Well,
But yeah, I don't know. I'd say whenever I'm kind of looking at a new app or something, I'm usually doing a bunch of the same stuff. I'm usually kind of just out of curiosity. Like when I install new mobile apps, I'm usually looking at what it's doing over, I have a jailbroken iPhone so that I can evade certificate pinning and then do SSL man in the middle attacks on every app I use. And that's really just purely curiosity. I just want to see what's everything sending. What are the different apps on my device sending out? What kind of information are they sending out? And what are they getting back? And can I see things that I'm not supposed to be able to see? Can I see other people's accounts or other accounts of mine that I shouldn't be able to see normally? So I'm kind of just curious what's happening under the hood.
yeah, and that kind of I think ties into what the skills are necessary, because what I've noticed from a lot of your stuff that you've like is on YouTube and stuff, that you go all the way down to like the bit level. I'm thinking of the mag spoof, and I recently just watched your How I Met Your Girlfriend, which like went down to entropy and all this. It like really dived like super deep down to ones and zeros essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. The PHP stuff or the How I Met Your Girlfriend DEF CON talk is pretty interesting. And that was honestly like a lot of this stuff is. I'll say a lot of the same things usually happen. So like with the PHP entropy thing, essentially, I discovered I could in under an hour basically figure out people's session cookies in up to the current version of PHP. I sent a patch, and this was several years ago, but I could basically hijack sessions on a ton of PHP websites, even if they were using the latest version of PHP down to very old versions of PHP based off the entropy and the random number generator. And that was only because I had just read a bunch of stuff about crypto, because I really didn't know anything about crypto. I still only know a bit, but I'd read a bunch of stuff. I read Applied Cryptography by Bruce Schneier, and it was like, this is so cool. And I wanted to understand what's sort of a common, let's say, software stack that uses crypto. And I'm curious how that stuff relates to what I read in the book. And I started looking at PHP, and it was only when I started going through the code that I saw, wait, I'm pretty sure these are some bad things that are happening based off what I just read. Let's see if we can exploit that. And I'd say MagSpoof was kind of the same thing. MagSpoof really just came from I'd gotten a new Amex card, and after this card, I realized a lot of the numbers were the same. So I compared to my last 4 Amex cards, and almost all the numbers were the same except a few. And then I figured out a way to essentially generate them to the point that if I were, let's say, to lose my card, or if someone were to steal my card and I called it in, if I were an attacker, I could actually figure out what the next card was before they even sent it out. And I could know what the expiration date was. And then I was like, well, I wonder if I can copy that. I wonder if I can cancel a card and then use the next card before I even receive it. Maybe I can write to a card, but I really didn't understand how mag stripes work, so I started looking into that. And that's when I learned literally the magnetic polarity on those mag stripes, which I demoed that in the video, how you can kind of see it with the naked eye and literally read the bits off with the naked eye using sort of small iron oxide filings. And then I thought, well, if it's just literally magnets, can't you just create an electromagnetic force and switch polarity, really with just wire and electricity? So then I used essentially an Arduino or ATtiny to generate MagSpoof, and that allows you to essentially simulate any kind of mag stripe or credit card. And then you can kind of play with all the data on there, right? That's when you can start playing with the service code, and that's when I learned that you can actually disable chip in America, where we only recently got chip from all the credit card fraud. And then I learned that essentially the chip is really just on the mag stripe. So you can say, oh yeah, this is not a chip card, and it won't authenticate the chip, which is kind of hilarious based off the whole point of the chip is to verify that you do in fact have the card in your possession.
Right. Yeah, I was going to use ridiculous, but yeah, hilarious is good too. So.
Yeah, a little of both.
Yep. So how do you decide your next project?
I guess, like I said before, I'm kind of usually working. I'm super excited about something, and I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be a great project, and I spend like a day on it or 2 days, and then I get stumped, and I'm like, I don't know how to move on. and then I move to something else. Or sometimes I'll spend a lot more time. So I don't know. I'd say a lot of my projects are also like weekend projects that just happen to, I got super excited about something that I thought of or figured out, and then I just went through and kind of just worked until I got it complete. So I might be working on something longer term, and then some idea will pop up, and I'm like, oh, I need to do this now. So it's hard to say. It just depends on the project.
Right.
I have like an RF thing I've been working on for probably months now, just because it's been a lot of learning about how RF works and how analog signals work and how I can, I don't know, just deal with a lot of this stuff. So, some projects do take a long time.
Okay. So what would be the first step for finding vulnerabilities?
I guess I would just try to look, I guess whatever you're targeting, I would try to learn how that works. And I think when I was younger, I was like, oh man, I'm not going to read a manual. I don't need a manual. And now I always read the manual because there's so much interesting information that you probably wouldn't know otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
You might think you know how the product works, in and out. But when you read the manual, there are just like little nuances that the authors will put in there that, at least for me, are always surprising. So that's like number one. And then I'll see, have other people done research on it? Have other people done projects around it? And then then I guess it depends. What are we talking about? Are we talking about software? Are we talking about hardware? Are we talking about combination lock? Like, it kind of depends what the thing is. If it's physical, then I want to open it up. If it's like a hardware, I want to open it up. If, in the combo lock video, I had no idea what was going inside. So I took a Dremel and I cut it open until I could extract every little piece and just see how it worked inside. If it's a piece of hardware, then I'll open it up. I'll look at all the chips. I'll see what the chips are. I'll see what the PCB is doing. I'll look up the data sheets for every piece of hardware in there, so I know what each integrated circuit is capable of doing. Then I don't know. Then maybe I'll see if I can, if it's hardware and it has flash memory, I'll see if I can dump the flash. I'll see if I can, either use a programmer to dump the flash, or if need be, I'll write my own programmer and put it on GitHub and then dump the flash that way. And then if I have the flash, then I'll throw it into a disassembler and I'll start looking at the disassembly. If there are apps that interface with it, so if there's a mobile app or a website, I'll check those out. I'll see how those work. If it's a mobile app, I'll decompile it, decrypt it, disassemble it as well. I'll look at any network communication that's going on. So if there's a website or a mobile app, I'll intercept any network communication and see what it's doing, what it's talking to. I might then write my own interface to the network just to see, can I send data? What if I change data that, it's not supposed to send or wouldn't normally send? I'd say those are kind of like I'd say those are kind of the first things I do. And that by itself, that can take a good amount of time. Mm-hmm. And give me a ton of information. And then I'll see, well, are there the areas that I don't know anything about, which there usually are. And then I'll see, okay, can I learn more about that and how that operates or works?
So you kind of want to get a complete picture of everything.
Yeah. And then sometimes I'll also see what other maybe products that are similar in nature, how they work. What are the differences? Like, does this have pros? Does this have cons? Are they missing something? Are they maybe doing something wrong that something else is doing that maybe will give me an idea? It's really just like I'm trying to understand how it works. Mm-hmm. If there are patents on it as well, you can go look up patents. If it's RF based, you can look up the FCC docs. If there are schematics online, if you can draw a schematic yourself,
Okay. So what do you do once you've found a vulnerability?
I usually sell it on the black market for tons of money. No, actually not at all. I guess it depends on the vulnerability. If it's something I think I can do a really cool project around, I'll usually try to think of a project that I think is interesting that, I don't know, that would get me excited. Like if I were to see a project on Slashdot and I would be excited about it, then I'll do it. If I think it's just not cool enough or interesting enough to do anything about, I might reach out to someone about it. And then that's about it. Or I might stash it. Honestly, I might just I might just document it locally. If I think it's something cool that can be demonstrated or I can do something with later. But often I'm just disclosing it so someone can make a, resolve something.
Well, and that's what I like about your videos is that you also provide like how to, mitigate the vulnerability that you found within the device.
Right.
Sometimes there's nothing you can do, like the garage doors again, for instance. That's just an inherent flaw that you said was like 30 years old and wasn't being fixed by older garage, but like newer stuff was accounting for it.
Right. And then I just listed out, the garage door manufacturers that I tested that are actually using, improved, not perfect, but improved, protocols, let's call it. Granted, at my next DEF CON, at the DEF CON talk after that video, I then demonstrated how to break into all the new garages as well. There, in the Drive It Like You Hacked It DEF CON talk, and I talked about how to fix that issue as well, and sort of the next, and that's sort of the roll jam attack that affects garages and cars as well.
So what's it like working with some of these bigger companies? I know you said you reported it to American Express. Did you reach out to people on the garage door?
There's not no one really to reach out to. I think I reached out to like one or two companies, but I didn't get any response. I reached out to some of the bigger ones. Some of them, most of them were like, well, just use a more secure product that we sell. And I was like, okay.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, like you should probably not sell things that are, that have massive insecurities in them. Big companies are, American Express. I got talked to a bunch of people there. People were nice. No one actually agreed that it was legit. That like I got a lot of, I guess, pushback, which was fine. I mean, that's okay. I just wanted to be like, hey, can you like confirm? Can you just say, is this true or not? But no one, I don't think anyone there actually tested what I was saying, because I think they would have been like, oh yeah, this is correct. This is actually happening. Because I tested on, I'd say 2 or 3 dozen different sets of credit cards. I have some great friends who all gave me their credit card numbers and allowed me to verify and do some testing. But no, I don't think anyone actually ever confirmed it with me. Even though I tried to reach out. And then some companies are awesome. Like some companies, like they're very receptive, and I love that we have that now. We have, a lot more responsive companies who are, they're building cool products, and they also care about the security issues. So they want to resolve those. And I like that. And
yeah, PHP, I guess, was one of the other ones that responded pretty positively to your
I think I just patched those guys, and they just wanted some explanation of like what the issue was. And then once they released the version with the patch, then I released the vulnerability or the exploit.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, you typically, I guess, try to reach out first before you really disclose it to everybody.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what it is as well. I think a lot of, most people who are looking at vulnerabilities, they're looking at like software vulnerabilities that happen on a specific version of software. And most of the things I look at nowadays, I'm less interested in, let's say, an issue with a particular piece of software, and I'm more interested in protocol level issues, like things that are harder to fix are interesting to me, because I don't know, they're just harder to fix. I think that's it has to do with more of the design and architecture of a system. When you can find a flaw in that, I think that's just super interesting, because it just seems like a bigger problem. I mean, granted, any bug in software is also a big problem. I don't think one's like bigger than the other. It's just one is harder to solve than the other, oftentimes.
Okay. So what resources would you recommend for finding vulnerabilities? Or someone that wanted to get into doing this kind of security research?
I would say if there were like a tip that I think I had for people, it would be, don't practice too much. Like, don't go and do, there's a lot of really cool challenges. And let's say you want to do reverse engineering of, I don't know, x86 or portable executables or something. There's a lot of cool challenges and like crack me's and basically test things you can do, test apps you can mess with. I wouldn't spend too much time on those, because while you are learning a real skill, like just go and get a real program and actually start working on that. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot more. It's like if you, I don't know, get a brand new game and you start practicing on easy. Yeah, you're going to like get the hang of it decently and you're going to feel good about yourself. But if you just jump into expert, yeah, it's going to suck at first, but you're actually going to get really good very quick. Because you can only flail so much before you start to like see patterns and start to learn what's really happening under the hood. So I'd say whenever I feel like doing kind of like a challenge, or I'm trying to learn something new, instead of going to a practice run or practice round, I go for the real thing. I go and I don't try to break the real thing. I just try to learn how a real thing is working, how a real piece of software or hardware or protocol or architecture is actually working. Because I think just doing that, you actually find things, and it's surprising.
Okay. So is there anything else you'd like to mention that we haven't already discussed?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's like, find things that are interesting to you and just kind of persist in understanding how they work. Try to find other vulnerabilities. I read Frack growing up, so that's always there's always cool articles there. And also, find people who are releasing stuff. If you like, check my website or my YouTube. I'm always putting stuff out, and there are a ton of other people who are always putting really cool stuff out.
Okay. So speaking of your website, what would you like to plug?
Sure. I'd like to. Yeah, my website is samy.pl, samy.pl. And I just have a bunch of projects there, and also my YouTube, where I have a bunch of different videos and projects as well. I have a write-up accompanying every video as well, and that's called Applied Hacking on YouTube.
And your Twitter account?
Samy Kamkar, I think. SAMYKAMKAR.
Cool. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for joining me to discuss how to find vulnerabilities.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
That will do it. Hopefully you learned something. Feedback is welcome at timothy.dblock@gmail.com or on Twitter @TimothyDblock. Show notes can be found at timothydblock.com/EIS. If you enjoyed the show, share it with others and rate it on iTunes. Have a good one.